mind. In fact, it's much better to try to quiet the mind. When we're able to get the mind totally quiet, what's left over is the infinite self. Every thought is a thing of limitation. Therefore, when we quiet the mind, this infinite being that we are becomes self-obvious to us. We see it. We recognize that we never were that mind, that body. And from that moment on, the mind and body has no influence upon us. It just goes its way. It just keeps floating through life in sort of a hazy dream that has no effect upon us. So the very best method of all methods is to quiet the mind, to seek the being that you are, to pose the question, who am I? And if other thoughts come in, ask, to whom are these thoughts? And the answer is to me. Well, who am I? And you're back on the track. Who am I is the final question that everyone answers. So why not begin with the final question? All methods get to be the same as we move toward the top. We simply quiet the mind, eliminate thoughts, get the mind quieter until the mind gets totally quiet. What's left over is our glorious, infinite self. There are two ways of growing. One is eliminating the negative. Going into the mind, seeing the cause of the problem, which originates in a thought sometime in the past, or many thoughts. And when we see this thought, when we bring it up into the consciousness, we naturally let go of it. We see how silly it is to hold it and correct that behavior. However, the better way is to quiet the mind and to see who and what you are. I am that I am he. All right, now I'll take up a step below where I was talking. This so-called apparency called the world. The world is only an illusion that we created. Someday you'll discover that you created this entire universe. The method of creating is by first creating what we call a mind. We create our mind, which is nothing but a composite of all our thoughts. And thoughts create the material world. Every little thing that happens to each and every one of us is created in our thinking. We set up a thing called time, which makes it even more difficult to see things because we think now and things might happen years later. But the only creator there is the mind, your mind. Is God a creator? Yes, because you are. Thou art that. You set up a mind and the mind creates. It is good to discover that everything happening is caused by our thinking. Everything that happens to us is created in our own thought. It's a stepping stone toward realizing that we are the creators. First you discover that you created your trouble. Then you discover that you can create good things. Then you discover that you can create anything you desire. After you discover that there is nothing that you cannot create, you're still unhappy. The reason being that you have separated yourself from the One. So then you try to control the mind. You have already gained control over matter. You control the mind in ways like, if you have pain, you don't feel it. If it's cold outside, you feel warm. If it's hot, you feel comfortable. This can be done mentally. This is in the line of getting mental control. When the mind is really controlled, then you'll eliminate the mind. When the mind's eliminated, there's nothing left over but the infinite self that you are. So we start by becoming masters over matter. Then we become masters over mind. Then we become masters. So if there are any problems that remain, they only remain because you are holding on to them. The moment you let go of them, they are gone. If you tell me that isn't so for you, that isn't true. The truth is you're still holding on to it, telling me that it doesn't work. Now, trying to get rid of a problem is holding on to it. Anything we try to get rid of, we are holding in mind and therefore sustaining that problem. So the only way to correct a problem is to let go of it. See not the problem. See only what you want. If you would only from this moment on see what you want, that is all that you would get, what you want. But you hold in mind the things you do not want very strongly. You struggle to eliminate the things you don't want, thereby sustaining them. You should have only one desire. A desire for complete liberation, complete realization. Any other desire will keep you in trouble. We should try to let go of all desires. We should not try to fulfill any desires. Every time we fulfill a desire, we strengthen that desire rather than weaken it. Which I believe is obvious to all of us. That we never satiate desires. The more we try to satisfy them, the more we want of them. So it's better to not satisfy desires. And by doing so, the mind gets quieter. When the mind is quieter, we have a better chance to see the truth. When we see the truth, we scorch the desire. And this is the better way actually the only really effectual way of getting rid of desire. And you see the truth, desires are scorched, because a desire is trying to be your own real self through some indirect means, through some person, through something. When you see this, you let go of these silly desires, because why struggle through an indirect means to be that which you are? The indirect means cannot make you what you are, so it's fruitless and extremely frustrating. Therefore, we have this frustrated world. They're all trying to satisfy desires. It's absolutely impossible to do it. And they go on, lifetime in, lifetime out, until we recognize that desires are our enemy. Desire is an admission of lack. If I am the infinite one, I desire nothing. I am the all. We must get back to that state by behaving as one would in that state. The greatest behavior that we can perform is living as a fully realized being would live. Try to attain the desirelessness state. Try to attain the state of dispassion. No attachments, no aversions. Try to attain the state of equanimity, a feeling of equal-mindedness toward everything, everyone. Acting this way will push us toward being that way by eliminating the effects out there. We help to eliminate the cause.
The title of this session is Experiencing Truth, recorded February 4th, 1965.
All we need to do is to let go of our concepts of limitation. And what's left over is the natural, infinite, unlimited being. Sometimes this subject is called truth, sometimes God, metaphysics, but actually it's the subject that every human being, whether he's aware of it or not, is trying to learn. And that's why I like the word happiness instead of God, infinity, truth. This thing called happiness is the very nature of this unlimited being. And every time we're happy, we're allowing a bit more of this unlimited being to express itself, to come out. Or we're cutting off a certain amount of limitation of that infinite being. And then we say, I am happy. There is no happiness that isn't a feeling of your real inner self. That's what it is. Therefore, I call the subject sometimes happiness. That the goal is to attain a continuous happiness with absolutely no sorrow whatsoever. When I define the word truth, I say truth is that which never changes. This constant state of happiness never changes. And as I said before, I'd like to make this practical. What is it that never changes? Beingness just bees. It doesn't change. Existence just exists. It doesn't change. So truth is beingness. But it's beingness being all beingness. It's the very beingness that you are when you use the word I, with nothing added to it, just the word I, that feeling of I. That's your beingness. That's infinite, that's unlimited. Until you put concepts of limitation over it and hide it. So the top goal is beingness, being all beingness. When we recognize that you are me, or that I am you, I am all beings, as you let go of the concepts of limitation, this thing comes about naturally. Another thing that doesn't change is awareness that is aware of all awareness. That's the ultimate, can't change anymore. Consciousness, conscious of all consciousness. See, this infinite being, which some people call God, we are experiencing all the time, every moment, by just experiencing our beingness. But we limit it to this body and this mind. But that beingness is actually infinite. That awareness is infinite. And all we need to do is let go of the concepts that limit it. Now, the first major wrong step we make is to say, I am an individual separate from all beingness. Then we have to create an instrument to be separate with, and that's the mind. The mind reflects back to us as much as this infinite beingness as we want it to. That reflection is cut more and more the more we take on concepts of limitation. We cannot grow into this infinite being because we are that here and now. But we can let go of all concepts to the contrary. Now, the reason why some of you have been so happy for a short period of time and then all of a sudden it seems as though the sky fell in is only because you were able to perceive this infinite being that you are. But you weren't able to keep out all the accumulated concepts of limitation from the past that prop up every now and then. Every time a concept of limitation comes up, you're not infinite anymore, and you're miserable. Unhappiness is a restriction upon being totally free, unlimited. So these patterns of thought from the past, they're tendencies, predispositions now. They prop up even after we've seen very deeply this inner being that we are. So what we need to do is to keep throwing off these limitations as they crop up until there are no more. Then what's left is the infinite being that we are. But the thing to do is to keep throwing them out until there are no more. Now, some of us have been accumulating these things for tens of thousands of years. So they die hard. They don't go very easily. However, being unlimited, infinite beings, by sheer power of will, a few people can, just like that, throw them all out. It happens occasionally. Oh, maybe a few dozen people each generation do it in the entire world. They are the so-called masters. They recognize that they are not limited by the body-mind. They consciously exit their body when they die, which allows them to come back in a body or not to come back in a body as they choose. The great leaders, the great spiritual leaders, are those who have chosen to come back in a body. They didn't have to come back. The rest of us must come back by force of habit. We have a desire for things here, and so we come back here. Desire is the only thing that keeps us coming back to this state of life, which is the most difficult possible state to any being, is the state we're in now. But as I've said, because of that, it affords the greatest of growth. It's the postgraduate course. We pass this course, we get our wings, our degrees. So even though it's extremely difficult, it's a tremendous advantage to be here. Although it doesn't look that way until you understand this. It looks more like a hell than a heaven. That's because of limitations self-imposed in the past that have now been relegated to the unconscious part of us. We've put it in back of the mind where we don't see it for the moment. But all those concepts of limitation are there and are effective and keep us confined, pressed down, bottled. And consciously we want to be free, freer than a bird. And so there's a conflict between this conscious desire to be free and the unconscious concepts of limitation. And you feel unhappy. You don't see it because it's unconscious. There's two ways of licking that. One is make the unconscious conscious, and when you see it, throw it out. There's an easier, faster, better way. By getting quiet, by turning your mind within yourself, asking, who am I? What am I? What's this world? What's my relationship to it? If you will stick with those questions, you will see this infinite being that you are. It's not easy because of the habit that's been going on for millenniums. It takes a tremendous desire for this truth or whatever we're seeking to accomplish it. Most of us get the desire from being beaten so hard by the world we finally get up enough gumption to want this. And then when it begins to make your life happier, then you want it because you know this is it. There's no top limit to happiness, to joy. And when you experience some of this joy gotten from going within, you will always want to re-establish that very happy state, which is the natural state. No matter how much you'll get away from it, sooner or later, you'll be back on a path trying to establish the constancy of this happiness. The basic law in this universe is harmony. God is absolute harmony. When we are in tune with the universe, our life is completely harmonious. No effort is required to do anything. Everything falls perfectly into line. When we see God as all, and we know God is harmony, everything is in harmony right now. And to the degree we accept that is the quickness thereof. Another way of putting that, I guess, is to see God in everything, in everyone, everywhere. God is beauty, harmony, rightness, everything good. And accept that. And then allow this God principle to arrange things for you. We have to get our little selves out of the way. This sense of egoity, I am an individual, separate, and I've got to do things, is what makes all problems. The moment we let go of that sense of egoism, let it be God's world. Let God do it. He knows how. When we do that, everything falls into line. It can be a court trial, it can be anything. It can be a sick body. The moment we accept that principle, everything harmonizes. Radical reliance upon God will do it. Let go and let God. I moved unusually fast because either I got the answers or I was finished. But the method I used happened to be the very highest possible method. Who am I? That was the driving question. Who am I? What am I? I was so determined, my mind was concentrated. And when your mind is concentrated, the answers are there. A concentrated mind is a mind that keeps out extraneous thoughts, holds only the thing you're interested in. And when you do that, the answer comes. Thoughts will come in. When a thought comes in, say, to whom is this thought? Well, the thought's to me. Well, who am I? And you're back on the track again. In this manner, you can keep knocking out these thoughts. If you'll continue that, you'll reach a place where the thoughts don't come in anymore and you're free of thoughts. Many of us have experienced it for a certain length of time. It's a feeling of complete at-oneness with everything. It's a feeling of no otherness. It's a feeling of very profound peace. Even though there's activity, you see no action. Everything just is. The very top state is one of very profound peace. See, first it's an exciting joy. Then it's a very exuberant joy. You can't contain it. It begins to hurt because it just swells up and wells up all the time. Can get to be annoying, and yet it isn't, because it's tremendous amounts of joy coming up. Then it moves to a higher state of peace. That's why the Bible says that the peace that passeth all understanding. It's a very deep, wonderful, profound peace. It's the most delicious thing there is, but you can't describe it. Peace is the word that comes closest to it. You see, because these states are not ordinarily experienced, there are no words for them. First it's feelingness. Yeah. It is feelingness. And then when it goes on, it turns to beingness. When you first get interested in this path, everything is thought, it's all mind thinking. Then thoughts take on a certain feeling. It's like a thought and a feeling at the same time. It's a thought feelingness. And as you move, you get into the realm of feelingness. And then the step above that is the realm of beingness. So it depends on where you are as to whether it's feelingness or beingness. Actually, everyone in his every act is seeking his real self. We will never, ever be satisfied until we reach that state of knowing ourself completely.
The title of this session is Letting Go of Ego, recorded May 19th, 1966.
I guess the best way to start is with an overall picture of our direction in such a way that it